Carmelo Hayes has now made his WWE Raw debut. Should Raw become his home? Is he ready for the main roster? We're going to talk about it today and everything else. So stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my trios team, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, and of course, the professor that is Gerard Bonner. Him has made his way to Monday Night Raw. Not permanently, but we saw him being Carmelo Hayes, make his in-ring Raw debut just yesterday against former NXT champion, the longest reigning NXT champion in Finn Balor. Of course, given the backstory for those that don't know, Finn Balor turned up on NXT to confront Seth Rollins, who just defeated Braun Breaker, and Carmelo Hayes came out to make the save for Seth. When Seth then returned and made his way on Monday Night Raw, he shouted out and acknowledged the help of Carmelo Hayes. Finn Balor once again came out to attack Seth Rollins. It seems to have been, I think he's done it like 3, maybe 4 weeks in a row now. And Carmelo Hayes once again saved Seth Rollins, I guess, from an imminent chair shot from Finn, which then led to Finn Balor versus Carmelo Hayes later on in the evening. My first question for the boys is, was Carmelo Hayes' match against Finn Balor star-making? Because we know that not all fans that watch Raw and SmackDown also watch NXT. Not everyone knows who Carmelo Hayes is. Did this match... Do you feel this match will help put eyes on either NXT or Carmelo Hayes? I'm going to go to Mex first because I saw the face that he made. Tell us all, Mex. What do you think?
For me, yeah, his inclusion here, the whole thing with Rollins and subsequently Finn and the match and the result, it's both excellent and terrible at the same time. Now, obviously, rubbing shoulders with the world champ, an actual world champion, I guess, on NXT on Monday Night Raw is excellent. Triple H and Shawn Michaels have cleverly positioned him in this position where he is. He's been involved in what is going to be a world title match on Saturday night. So, you can't ask for more than that from NXT, still being an NXT roster member. So yeah, this is all excellent, great positioning, all of that. The match was great. It wasn't as long as you wanted, but this is WWE. It wasn't a pay-per-view. There was no stakes, but he done enough in the match to really showcase himself. Different spots. Again, the presence, the way he carried himself, that even in his entrance, I said, this guy's ready. This guy is ready. Not even that I just found out today, but been ready. Now he's here. He's at the dance, innit? And, in terms of an audition, he done a great job. Him losing to Finn Balor, right? Now, I'm not asking for him to beat Finn Balor. Finn Balor is about to face the champion. He's the number one contender. Right. I don't expect Carmelo Hayes to win this match when Finn Balor is about to go into a massive match this weekend. However, at the same time, Carmelo Hayes has a title defense tonight on NXT. So you've done what's right for Finn Balor in this instance, but have you done right by your champion, your NXT champion that's going to now have his match? And yeah, that's the part for me where it's just like, well, could we have done this another way? Could we have had maybe a tag match where Seth Rollins and Carmelo Hayes take on Judgment Day, or Finn Balor and Baron Corbin, and Seth Rollins pins Baron Corbin? So, the other guys involved with each other don't really see each other too much in the finish of the match. did Carmelo need to have a match? Could Finn Balor's been pretty angry for a couple of weeks? Could Finn Balor just beating him up to a point where referee stoppage or something like that? And I know we often talk about, we want a clean finish and stuff, but referee stoppage, disqualification, something along the lines where the NXT champion that has a match the next night doesn't need to be pinned. Now, again, he's NXT champion. He can lose to someone that's about to be number one contender for the world title, someone that could win the championship. That's not the issue. I just think they protected Finn wisely because of his status and him going into the PPV. They didn't do the same for Carmelo, who has a match tomorrow night. This won't hurt Carmelo. We're not going to remember him by when he does get called up. Like, he's the guy that lost to Finn Balor. Like, no one's going to care. But, yeah, this just wasn't... It's like they got 90% there. It was almost correct. And then...
Gerard, what are your thoughts? And how could this have been done differently?
So I actually thought the way this was going to happen was we'd either get interference from Seth or interference from Baron that would cause a disqualification and both would be protected. In my mind, that's how this makes sense for everybody, because the second they announced this match, in my head, I'm like, okay, I want to see it because I have no idea who should lose. The flip side is if anybody loses, somebody's going to look weak. Finn Balor can't go into, with all this buildup they've had, he can't go into Money in the Bank losing. But my God, do you want your NXT champion to lose on his Raw debut 24 hours before he has a title defense against another main roster competitor?
Yeah.
Like, I think they did so much work. All the mentions, they mentioned NXT so much last night. I was like, oh, y'all are really wanting NXT to be an official third brand. Like, I'm for that. I'm cool with that. So to have your champion, who, granted, it's Finn Balor, the greatest, you could argue the greatest NXT champion of all time. No doubt about that. Number one contender right now for the world championship. And you're right. When we think about Carmelo in 2 years, we won't remember this in the same ways we don't remember Bianca Belair losing to Charlotte. We don't remember it. It happened on an episode of Monday Night Raw. You guys are like, oh yeah, that did happen. Right. That's my point.
We're not going to be fair.
Right. We're not going to remember this. Okay. But it's the idea that he's the NXT champion in this space. When you had Kevin Owens, I don't want to go here. When you had Kevin Owens as the NXT champion and he debuted against John Cena, he beat John Cena. So and that was the first time that they had an active NXT champion show up on the Monday Night Raw roster. I just think that there was a way to do this that protected everybody involved, since they all have something big that they're going. It's not like Carmelo's not doing anything, tonight on NXT. He's the main event in the second night of NXT Gold Rush. So I don't, granted, again, it's Finn Balor at the top of his game. So I understand that. I just think it would have made perfect sense for either Seth or Baron or both to get involved in the match. And, both guys leave strong. They had a great match for sure. I think people responded very well to Carmelo, which said, which spoke a lot about how many people were actually watching NXT. He was well received, but good Lord, I think we could have did it a little bit better than that.
My mind was going back to or hoping for the type of match that we had when Shelton Benjamin faced Shawn Michaels. I think for me, the loss isn't necessarily the problem, given everything that we're talking about, it being Finn Balor. Finn Balor's going to have a match against Seth Rollins. Finn Balor being the longest reigning NXT champion, blah, 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 the rest of it. The loss wasn't the real problem here. Yes, it caused a dent because, Carmelo Hayes faces Baron Corbin tonight. But for me, it just felt as though we could have had a longer match, a little bit more of a competitive match, to give us, even the scares that, Finn Balor might actually lose this. I think for me, it would have put eyes on NXT tonight. It puts Carmelo Hayes in a good light. Finn Balor still comes out and shows some level of resilience as well, as much as he's a heel, and they don't necessarily have to show that type of resilience in, with history and all the rest of it. But it didn't do enough for both guys. I don't think it did anything. Yes, Finn Balor won, but I don't think it then made me feel as though, Finn Balor has a chance against Seth Rollins. That's my issue.
So big up Mark. Mark's comment here says Carmelo didn't really need to be anywhere near Finn Balor at all. Could have beaten a mid-carder to show what he's got. That's a good point as well. True. Obviously, but he was embroiled in this Seth Rollins, Finn Balor stuff. With what you've just said there, yeah. Do you want Finn Balor to look like he's almost struggling or having a fair fight against someone that is a champion on what is currently still a development brand?
Mm-hmm.
Should the contender for the world champion have a competitive match with someone that is effectively not a world champion? He is just a champion of NXT. Now, I'm with you. I would have liked that.
Okay.
But how they want to, portray Finn Balor, I guess how they have been portraying Finn Balor as well to some degree. Like, if you're the smart fan, you're thinking, why is Finn Balor struggling against this guy? Ultimately, and he thinks he's gonna go beat Seth Rollins on Saturday. He can't beat this guy, relatively quickly. You see what I mean? So I think there's a bit of that as well.
And I think this is the mistake of having this match right now, because there's no way that you can shape this that makes everybody come out smelling like roses.
Right.
Because if we're trying to establish Finn Balor, first of all, to put him in the world title picture, and we're still calling NXT officially a developmental brand, you need to distance him from NXT. I think it's odd that they distanced him from Judgment Day. Like when Judgment Day was doing stuff last night, he was nowhere to be found. When he was doing stuff, they were nowhere. I think it's weird that they distanced him from them, but not from NXT. Like to Mex's point, if the guy, you've worked so hard to make him shed all the other spots where you thought he was weak in a mid-carder, now you have him fighting. Now for us, Melo's that guy. We want to see him get that opportunity. And him being put against someone who's the number one contender for your world title speaks a lot about what they think of Melo. But until you announce NXT as an official third brand, we're kind of putting ourselves in a weird space here. To the point that was made by the comment, putting him against a mid-carder would have been more effective for Carmelo, because because essentially Baron Corbin is a mid-carder, right? So him beating somebody on that level says, okay, he can obviously do that, and Finn could have easily fought somebody else last night as a tune-up that would have made sense, that he could have still won, and everybody would have come out of this looking better.
To answer Mex's question, I would say yes, only because the two things that make a little bit of a difference here is, one, Finn being a heel, and obviously the last 3 or 4 weeks he's been beating up Seth Rollins, and even Seth made a point in his promo to say, Finn couldn't beat me on my best day. That's why he's been beating me up, blah, blah, blah. So there is still that. Yes, it doesn't then put Finn in the same space that he has been at one point, or we want him to be, as this phenomenal wrestler, which he is, but right now he's a heel and he's playing that up, to the most. On the second point, I think I just think it would have made more sense for Carmelo, even in losing, that it was a very competitive match. Because if they're doing this whole thing of NXT possibly being a third brand, then you've got the second night of Gold Rush happening the next day. Again, it ticks boxes. It's either you do it, you go through it, or you don't do it at all, as Mark said in the comments. It's one or the other. This in between that we saw it last night doesn't. I don't think he did anything for either of them. I don't think, as much as Finn won, I don't think it actually does anything for Finn Balor because it was a very simple and easy match. It didn't make me think, oh, he's got a chance, or a better chance at Seth.
I think you're right. I think they just wanted to give him a win before the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And that's all it really was. And Carmelo was spotlight. And like I said, he done some great, his usual repertoire in NXT, but for the main roster, it's new stuff that, they don't see. So, he was a good spotlight for him. Finn Balor got a win. Apart from that, did anyone really benefit? Probably not.
I have a crazy devil's advocate thought here. And that is this. Sorry for referencing the devil. My bad. Because who's on the level with the devil, right? MJF, clearly. But I just thought about this. Was this match optically as detrimental as we just said it was, considering a week ago, the World Heavyweight Champion just defended the title in NXT against a former NXT champion? So maybe this isn't optically as bad as we thought.
Right.
If just last week, Braun Breaker fought the world champion.
And I think that's another reason why, for me, a more competitive match, blah, 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 wouldn't have been a bad thing for Finn, with him being, number one contender for the world championship. And Carmelo Hayes losing to a former, the longest reigning champion in NXT history, blah, 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 all the rest of it. It wouldn't have been an issue. You just had your world champion on the development brand the week before. And it was a very good match as well. Yeah. So it easily could have been done better. It didn't do anything for anyone, but I don't think it didn't harm anyone either, because I'm at the same time we've said all of this, I'm not now thinking, oh, Carmelo Hayes might lose tonight.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me think that in the slightest. But it kind of, I guess, in all, it just didn't need to happen.
With that said, he looks really good on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
He looks really good on Monday Night Raw. And I feel like what Triple H and the crew have done in keeping him in NXT so long is they have changed the playing field on Raw so that there are smaller guys that are at a top level. So when he comes in, he doesn't look like a kid. He looks like he can, because he stood toe to toe with Finn, and none of us thought anything crazy, seeing Tommaso Ciampa around, etc. So they've changed the playing field, so it's not the land of the giants anymore, which is good for whenever Carmelo should show up, which to a degree then does make me a wee bit nervous about tonight because he looked so good on Raw last night.
True, actually. True. Okay, so that is the question now. Then, the same question that Mex asked at the top of the show is: should Carmelo Hayes be on Monday Night Raw? Is he ready? Does that then mean there's a possibility of him losing tonight and him going straight to Raw? If he loses this championship, what happens if he did lose the championship, Mex? What do you think would happen if he does lose the championship? It's a massive if.
As in he loses to Baron Corbin. We laughed, but we saw Dolph Ziggler beat Braun Breaker. So
we did.
And I generally think Baron Corbin as champion in NXT would be brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
If he lost, I could see a program of him still sticking around and doing what he can to win the title back and maybe eventually winning the title back. I feel it was the soft launch of Carmelo Hayes. This was pretty much introducing him so that people are aware of him when he actually does come up. With how they seemingly rate Carmelo Hayes, I'm almost thinking when they do bring him up, it will be pretty much like a Finn Balor situation. Like, wow, first round draft for whatever brand. He might get shot to some type of title, might not be the world title like Balor did, but maybe a mid-card belt immediately sort of thing. I feel when they actually bring him up, this is going to be a big deal. We're here saying Raw debut, Raw debut. He's already debuted on SmackDown, if you remember, a couple
Very
weeks back.
true. Very true.
So they know what they're doing. Like Gerard said, this could be them trying to elevate the profile of NXT and third brand and all that kind of stuff. It's the same man that they're using, though, to kind of put into these positions and warm him up to this main roster crowd, the mainstream audience. So I feel like when we do finally get him there, it's like you guys are gonna know him. You guys are gonna be clamoring for him, like many people were when Finn came up. Like, and we're putting him right into the fire the minute he gets here, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think it's an immediate thing if he loses tonight or whatever the case is that he goes up or whatever. But yeah, like even something like if they had that kind of plan for him, including him in like the Money in the Bank ladder match, could have been a great position for someone. Nice. You know, we always hear Royal Rumble and want to see Royal Rumble surprises. This Money in the Bank ladder match is a lot more intimate. You don't need to be of any real skill level or I'm a main roster veteran. You climb that ladder, you get the briefcase, you know when to cash it in, you're world champion. It's as simple as that, I say. But yeah, like, so something special is definitely in line for this guy. It's just a matter of, you know, how they do it. But I think they are handling this very, well, apart from last night, they are handling his debut very carefully and how they're going to use him, because they have, you know, a lot of stocks and, you know, invested in Carmelo.
Just a thought as well when you were talking about all of that. I obviously remember Bron Breakker making his debut on Raw, and that was against Dolph Ziggler, right, for the NXT Championship, and he won it back. Since that night, almost every week for the next year or so, you know, up until the draft even, you know, we were expecting Bron Breakker to make a transition from NXT to the main roster in some way. Of course, that never happened during the draft. Do you think that has hindered Bron Breakker, and do you think there's a very similar possibility, or should I say, should Carmelo Hayes be handled very differently? Because for me, I feel as though Bron Breakker has probably lost some level of substance now that he's not on the main roster. They've taken too long. I feel as though it needs to happen in the next year or so, before the end of this year, for Carmelo to make that move. Otherwise, we're going to get a very similar situation. Gerard, what do you think about that whole thing?
I think there are a couple of differences. Number one, before you even ask that question, I was going to say I do not foresee Carmelo Hayes waiting a year before he shows up on Raw. I don't foresee that. I think there are two major differences here. Difference number one is that Bron Breakker somewhat fell victim to the identity crisis that is NXT. True. You know, during that period, NXT was formerly NXT 2.0. You know, since then, they've dropped the 2.0. Now there's talk of it being a third brand. So they've gone through a bit of an identity crisis on that end. So he became a victim of that. I think we also have to remember that he has only been in the business for less than, 2 years? Yeah. As opposed to, you know, the veteran status of Carmelo Hayes. So I think Carmelo Hayes is intrinsically much more ready than a Bron Breakker. I think Bron Breakker just appeared to be a big fish in a small pond because of his family's pedigree, his natural athletics, and in comparison to the super green people that were being highlighted on 2.0. Since we've left the 2.0 space, we've had an influx of some of the NXT UK stars. You know, we've had some of those 2.0 folks leveling up, pun intended. And so now they're in a different space where all of a sudden Bron Breakker doesn't look so Bron Breakker-ish anymore. And that's not because he lost a step. It's because everybody else around him, you know, was elevated a bit. And he's not just around the folks who've been in the Performance Center for a year and just never had an opportunity. So do I think Bron Breakker is almost ready to be on the main roster? I do. I think he needs a little more time because right now he feels one trick pony-ish, which is I'm the strong guy. I'm just going to run over everybody. You know, you're going to need more because it's a different kind of roster on both Raw and SmackDown. So I think we're looking at two different things, and I don't think that Carmelo Hayes spends another year in NXT before coming to the main roster.
That's very true, because I think, you know, even the fans kind of saw, you know, the not one-dimensional, but I guess the lesser dimensional Bron Breakker compared to a Carmelo Hayes. That's why they started booing him, all the rest of it. And yeah, his star status has kind of dwindled a little bit in some way. It was nice that he faced Seth, but he didn't do much.
Bron Breakker can't come up to the main roster with his character being tough guy.
Right.
It won't last. It really won't last. And yeah, the family thing is maybe something that has been leaned on a bit, and maybe to their detriment, sort of thing. And now that's why he's a bit struggling. Like I'm enjoying him right now in NXT, kind of being the tough guy. And like, I think I've made reference to this before in this show, like, especially from the 2.0 days, it's almost like they made NXT 2.0 like a high school. Like, you know, here was the cheerleaders, and here was this person, and this is, and so him playing the tough guy right now, even though I know we're kind of out of that era, is kind of fine. It's natural progression for me from what I guess they were doing there. It won't last on the main roster. Everyone's a tough guy. Like, people can talk, and, you know, heel or face, you're a tough guy, sort of thing. So like, yeah, he needs a bit more. Whereas Carmelo, like I said, from the minute they said he was in the crowd and he made his entrance for the match, like, it was just different. It was just like, he was just radiating some type of like confidence that is just like, you know what, I cannot lie, and, you know, I'm not judging anyone here, but I watched him made his entrance, and I said to myself, because obviously Ricochet had a match that on the night as well. I said, Ricochet, bro, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, because yeah, you're fantastic in the ring, but this is the source, it's the confidence of Carmelo. It's just it's the je ne sais quoi that you just can't put a figure on, you can't put a number on it. Like, so much. I think he's gonna be pretty much like a cult hero by the time he gets to main roster. People are gonna be calling and clamoring, why is Carmelo not on the main roster yet? By the time he debuts, like, massive pops. Like, I really think that this guy is gonna take them by storm and embarrass a lot of people when he gets there.
I agree.
Yeah. I see very much, especially in a position in the position that this guy's been in, very similar to like an Austin Theory. Very similar in terms of the position where Austin Theory has been positioned, how they're using him. I see it a very similar way, even whether it's in a heel sense, in a face sense. I just see it in a very similar way. He's going to be the young, cocky, you know, ready to go guy that they're just gonna, you know, cook slowly. You know what I mean? He's marinating at the minute. He's in the fridge. You know what I mean? But they're gonna cook him slowly once they're ready to put him in the fire.
And with all that said, I would still even argue, I know we're long past this, but I would still even argue that something like, for him to go into the main roster in like a Hurt Business or something like that would be perfect.
Totally.
Like,
totally.
That's giving him extra protection that this can't fail, sort of thing. But I know they're long past the Hurt Business stuff, but like, we'll see with Carmelo, but yeah, stocks are high.
Yeah.
Before we turn our attentions away, just something I noticed as well, actually, when Carmelo was introduced, when Seth Rollins mentioned Carmelo and they put the camera on him, did anyone clock Rocky Johnson sitting behind Carmelo Hayes? Nope, not the actual Rocky Johnson, because he's not with us anymore.
Oh, I was like, wait, what?
This is this man dead.
Right. I knew I'd confuse you all, but no, the actor that played Rocky Johnson in The Rock's Young Rock.
I did think he looked familiar. I did think he looked familiar.
Yeah. That was him sitting behind him. I think he kind of tried to hide his face, but
the guy that was wearing a red top, right?
Like he was wearing like a white vest, like
a vest top. Yeah.
Right behind him. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I thought I'd mess with your heads a little bit by saying what I said.
Yeah, you did.
Wait, what? Which Rocky Johnson? Because I know
clearly there must be another because that one. Yeah.
Wow. Oh Lord! Speaking of weird and wonderful things, the Forbidden Doors were open in Canada, and the guys from AEW and New Japan, of course, stepped through and gave us the pay-per-view that was Forbidden Door. Guys, first of all, Gerard, what did you make of Forbidden Door in general? Did it work this year? How was it for you? How did you feel as you were watching?
Excalibur so expertly said that this pay-per-view was a love letter to pro wrestling. And when he said that, my heart got really warm because I was like, I'm watching this and this was amazing. And what made me feel even greater was seeing how all the fans that were there actually identified with how I felt. And I was just like, wow, this happened and it was incredible. It was just one of those nights where you dreamt about this kind of thing potentially happening and it lived up to what you dreamt about. Like it was just amazing. And it also said to me that there's room for a lot of pro wrestling right now in the industry, that we're not a one-trick pony, that it's not WWE or else. What AEW and New Japan did, and I'll throw this out there. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. They said that this is the third largest wrestling gate in the history of Canada. The only two that were larger was WrestleMania 6 and WrestleMania 18.
Wow.
And that also means that it grossed more in terms of the gate than Elimination Chamber earlier this year in Montreal. $200,000 more than that. So it says to me that people love great pro wrestling. AEW has hit a stride. New Japan, I thought, was put on display in a great, great way. So for me, this pay-per-view was top-notch, top tier. If we get into a conversation about pay-per-view of the year, this absolutely is in the conversation. It was amazing.
Mex, what was your favorite match of the night? Or your highlights in general?
My favorite match of the night was Omega Ospreay. Like, I just don't know like how these guys get better. Like, just when you think you've seen it all, it's just the level of investment and the story they're telling in the ring, mixed with obviously the innate talent they have of actually being fantastic wrestlers. It's just something mind-blowing every single time. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we saw how the main event match, which was excellent as well, ended, and that left the people somewhat confused. And of course, now everyone, me included, is thinking, well, the wrong match main event is. But that was excellent for me. The 4-way match for the
Unreal.
What was that?
Unreal.
Not intercontinental, international.
The all international. Yeah, the international.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant as well. There was a lot of really good matches on this card. Fun matches as well. Like I say, Danielson Okada. Danielson's I think at this point he's probably my favorite wrestler ever, and I just didn't see that this match would ever happen. And this man had a broken forearm and still wrestled the best in the world as if he never had a broken forearm.
Right.
The ending caught us all by surprise, but for sure now they're repeating this match in the Tokyo Dome for Wrestle Kingdom next year with that kind of finish. So yeah, all very, very, I just echo completely what Gerard said. Fantastic pay-per-view, one of the best we've had this year. Bring it on next year again.
The one thing that stood out to me, that wasn't the matches that we all just talked about, but the other thing that stood out for me was the constant. I think it happened literally every single match. The slap fests. that we had.
Oh yes.
What? I was just like, wait, am I watching a Ric Flair match every single time? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? But no, it was phenomenal to see that type of thing, and obviously every single time it happened, it got the same massive reaction from the crowd, which was just phenomenal. The other thing that stood out for me, the other person I think for me that stood out was Takeshita.
Yes.
My
Brilliant.
God,
He's
God,
world
he's phenomenal. My God, he's amazing. My
Woo.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. That for me was, I already knew how, that he was good. But for me, I think for me, he just stood out compared to everyone else because you already know how great Omega is. You already know how great Ospreay is. And some of the other guys, Shibata and Ishii and all these guys. But that guy in that match, my God. When he took out Ishii as well with that foot, my God.
Yes.
My God.
You laid
I
him
was like-
out.
I was like,
I think Takeshita's got so much more that we haven't seen yet. They're just literally unraveling stuff like for him bit by bit. Now he's turned heel as well. Like, he's gonna be mean. He and typically for someone from the Far East, Japanese, he's big compared to their usual stature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As people.
Right.
So especially in the Western world, this guy can go far.
Yeah. We see the likes of Tanahashi and those guys as well. And Tanahashi's probably, somewhat losing it a little bit.
I'll say it here. I've been saying it. He's going to Undertaker himself. Just respectfully hang up.
Yeah.
I know this is marquee pay-per-view for New Japan, and he's a marquee name without doubt. Put him in a 3-man tag. A 6-man tag, an 8-man tag, a 10-man tag. Like, let him bow out peacefully. Like,
right.
Not too much. I saw him at Royal Quest here in London last year. It was hard to see a goat, a complete goat, literally look like a lamb. Like, and the minute his match was done, he went backstage, he came out, he took pictures with us, and he had strapped his knees so much with ice. I was thinking, how are you even walking with all that ice on your knees?
Wow.
Like, big man, respectfully allow it.
Yeah.
Stop when you're ahead. Like, it's enough. Enough is enough.
Yeah.
With that said, though, I was going to say, and I might be going right where you're going. With that said, I am glad that we all got to see Tanahashi versus Swerve. I'm very glad.
Random.
I was going there. I was going there.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, obviously, Tanahashi went against Swerve on Collision the day before through Forbidden Door, and it was that made me think. Oh. But at the same time, for Swerve to have that on his resume is phenomenal. Swerve helped him, I guess, the little slip on the ropes. As much it kind of worked only because Swerve had already kind of worked on the knee, and you were able to kind of find a little bit of an excuse for it and whatnot. But yeah, it was a little worrying. But with that said, the reason why I mentioned Tanahashi and the likes of Okada and whatever else is because it's just great to see that someone like Takeshita is going to be or can easily be put in that space. Maybe within the next 5-10 years or so, we'll be talking about him in the same way we have, we do speak about Okada and Tanahashi. Moving away from the Japanese guys on Wrestle Kingdom, because this is BWA, not JWA. But it was great. I need to mention them. Willow Nightingale was also in action. Moving on swiftly. Willow Nightingale was also in action and faced the AEW Women's Champion Toni Storm. Unfortunately, lost to Toni Storm. It was a great match. But of course, as well, the night before that, she faced Nyla Rose in the women's contingent of the Owen Hart tournament. Now that Willow Nightingale has lost to Toni Storm, and that chapter's kind of been pushed to the side slightly. Can Willow turn her attentions to this Owen Hart tournament? Do we see her as a very viable winner, or just go far? Gerard, go for it.
Well, I think her problem is coming in the semifinals, as she's taking on Athena. And, they said, who's meaner than Athena? I mean, Tamina. Yeah, I just say this. The reality of it is, I don't see anybody beating Athena right now. She is so hot. And I'm so excited about this because I remember her days in NXT and in WWE as Ember Moon, and we were just craving for this version of Athena. And so for her to get to live as the greatest women's champion in Ring of Honor history and potentially win this whole thing, I think it's brilliant. She's so brutal. Nobody's beating her. What I think is unfortunate about this, and I'm already kind of ahead of the game on this, I think it's unfortunate for Willow to lose back-to-back to two other women's champions. That's the challenging part. So for Willow, a loss to Athena will be detrimental because it's sandwiched behind a loss to Toni Storm. Now, if Athena ends up losing to Willow, major feather in the cap for Willow to say she beat Mercedes and Athena in the same year. Builds up the stock for Willow for sure. We now see potentially a rematch, maybe at Death Before Dishonor for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. It can go some places, but right now, I think it's going to take a literal act of God for Athena to lose because she keeps figuring out ways to win. She's not, it was one point, it was that top rope stunner that she used to have, but now she can make you submit. She has a lot of ways to beat you. That makes her even more dangerous. So as much as I like Willow, I think her match against Athena is a must win, but I also think it's a can't win.
Mex, with both ladies being champions, Athena on a great run. Willow Nightingale obviously losing the other day to Toni Storm, and what Gerard said as well. Out of the two ladies, who do you think it's more important for to get this win?
Do I be cheeky and say neither because this tournament is rubbish?
Well, then there's that.
Respectfully, of course, we love Owen Hart. Listen, I think it goes two ways. Willow right now is in a comfortable spot. She's finally been, dubbed All Elite. She's got the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, which they can kind of then use to prop her into good positions on AEW TV because she's a champion. Athena is probably the person I think could benefit from the win and go further. Like, it means more for her. Like, this could be a good, in terms of her maybe actually going past with and winning this whole thing, could be a good way to bring her back into the AEW fold. Although, again, I say this whole thing, the tournament isn't great or whatever, but this could be a good way to almost reintroduce her as Ring of Honor champion over on something people are actually watching, because her qualifying match was on the 0 hour thing, so people might not have caught it. This is going to be, what's this on, Dynamite or Collision?
I believe it is, I'm not even too sure actually. Not sure.
As long as it's not on Rampage, it's a win. As long as it's not on Rampage, it is a win. So
I don't know yet.
You said, so, it's fine. I think Athena could possibly be someone here that gets the win, and it's like, right now she's won this trophy, and this is her kind of getting back to AEW TV. So maybe if she eventually down the line does drop the Ring of Honor title, she can kind of come back in here as I won the Owen Hart tournament, blah, 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 whatever the case is. They can do with, especially now we're going to lose Jade for possibly some type of extended period. They could do with having someone else in there as a heel character, a great wrestler, and, being a challenger possibly to Jamie Hayter once she comes back and wins the world title, or even Statlander now as, the TBS champion. So for me, Athena, I'm looking on the other side of the brackets. You know, the spirit of Britt Baker always looms. It's like in case of emergency, break glass, Britt Baker. I think Ruby Soho is someone that could definitely win this tournament, though, because of everything they're doing with this Outcast stuff. It could be a nice little accolade to just give her. So she's got something, Tony's got something, and Saraya doesn't really need anything in name value. She is who she is, and whether people think she's deserving, that's another conversation. But yeah, I think Ruby and Athena for me are the ones to go. But Willow's done well. She's been put in a lot of good positions to make this pay-per-view, as you know, one of only 2 women on the pay-per-view. Right, it's brilliant anyway. So yeah, but yeah, the optics, like Gerard was saying, in terms of losing 2 title matches, may not start looking so good.
It was great for Willow to be on the Forbidden Door card, and the match was very well received. And it went as I guess as great as it could have done. I don't think either of us, any of us, expected her to necessarily beat Toni Storm. So it was phenomenal. To answer my own question in terms of Athena versus Willow Nightingale, for me, if I put my A-Dazzle booking cap on, for me, there are more things that help Willow here than Athena. And in turn, it can help Athena. I say it like this, because for me, if Willow wins, it means then Athena will be upset. She may attack her after the match, maybe, or at some point the following week, or whenever, you know, Willow has another match or whatever, probably even in the final of the tournament. You have the potential of Willow then continuing the whole thing with the Outcasts if she then meets Ruby Soho in the final. And of course, coming from that, her beating Athena, you can have a rivalry with those two, and then a match between them two for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship as well, or possibly, you know, both titles on the line. Maybe, I don't know if they'll take it that far, because then she still has in New Japan, she still has other contenders coming for her as well. She could possibly lose to them before taking on Athena, maybe, or something like that. So for me, in general, it would be better in the long term for Willow to win. But at the same time, going back to everything that Gerard said about Athena, it would, you know, for that reason alone, it would still make a lot of sense for Athena to win and carry on this, you know, this juggernaut level of run that she's going on at the moment. And then as well to, you know, hopefully put more eyes on Ring of Honor, her as a wrestler as well. You know, give her that credibility again. You know what I mean? Let them see her again in that space. Does she then go on to win the Owen Hart tournament? I'm not too sure. Going off what Mech said as well, the tournament, unfortunately, based on what happened last year, we didn't get to see any kind of real, you know, outcome as to, you know, with Adam Cole and Britt Baker. We could have had King and Queen of Hearts and blah, blah, blah. But then Cole got injured and we literally had nothing. It's a chance for them to sort it out. But I'm looking at the brackets. I'm looking at the names that were involved in this whole thing. And I'm like, you guys knew exactly who your semi-finalists were, didn't you? Because the other people that they faced, maybe apart from, and talking about the men's one as well, maybe apart from Ricky Starks versus Juice Robinson, every other match is just like, yeah, we know who's winning this. Same with the women's one. What's that?
Sorry, can you smell that?
What?
It's the brackets. They stink. That's the bruv, you just literally pulled people together. Oh, you're not
right.
Come over here. It's the tournament. You're honoring Owen Hart. Is this how Owen Hart would have wanted this? Like, it's for a company, and I understand. I think someone said before, like, tournament TV week to week. Like, we love it in G1 and New Japan and whatever, but week to week tournament TV, it's like it doesn't work. It doesn't capture the audience, which, okay, fairs. But these tournaments are relatively small. They're what, 16, 8 names?
8 people.
Like, for a company that started with rankings, wins and losses matter. Like, at least, you know, these are the top 8 ranked guys, or the 8 guys with the most wins in 2023. Want to give an opportunity to? Cool.
Right.
Then you bring them together, and it makes sense. Like, it stinks. I'm sorry.
I completely agree with you. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. Case in point, did we really think that Kojima was going to get out of the first round?
Like really?
I mean, so let's just run it out. He beats CM Punk in Punk's first singles match back. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Then what? You're gonna fly him back, and he's a it just there's so much of this that doesn't make sense here. And this is
go on, you can say it. You can say it.
You know, I think sometimes this is why it's dangerous to do things in an attempt to spite others. You know, it's very clear that WWE had Owen Hart's legacy. No ifs, ands, or buts. We all know why WWE can't do a tournament or honor him. His family won't accept it. With his family accepting AEW doing it, the thing is, it needs to mean something. We had whole belts made, but we never saw the belts after they were presented. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So now we go back. At least, you know, when you had things like King of the Ring, the winner was going to be the #1 contender and get a shot at SummerSlam or get a shot at this. There's no reason why we can't add that. You know, with the G1, we know, okay, the winner is going to get the main event spot at Wrestle Kingdom. With every tournament in New Japan, we know what the winner is going to get. So there's a reason for us to watch and be invested in it. I mean, again, why is CM Punk in a tournament? That's the first thing. I don't understand why CM Punk is in a tournament. I don't understand why Samoa Joe, your Ring of Honor television champion, is in a tournament. Was this who put out the memo that said this was open to Ring of Honor and AEW? Because we have 2 Ring of Honor champions in tournaments right now. Why? And what are they fighting for? You know, so I think it's unfortunate. And so since we don't know what we're fighting for, it kind of doesn't make sense for main event people to win this if it's not meaning anything. You know, like we've not made the Owen Hart tournament as prestigious as any other tournament in wrestling right now, period, indie or otherwise. And I think if there's no importance added to it, it actually sullies the name of Owen Hart. And that, I think, is the great grand tragedy. All these wrestlers in it, fine, but with no rhyme or reason, just so that we're not even finishing it on a pay-per-view. We're finishing it on a TV show that happens to be in his hometown. Who thought of it? I'm just saying, make it make sense. If you're going to do it, make it make sense.
And here's the thing, like, the second we found out CM Punk was in the tournament, we were just like, oh, forget it then. Forget it then.
So my prediction is we'll probably get, I think along the way, as per the brackets, we're probably going to get Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, which will be a good little match. Ricky, I think we're looking at maybe a Ricky CM Punk final. They're obviously, kind of crossing paths right now on the same team. And CM Punk, I said before, brilliant, great spot for him to start. But CM Punk being there, I mean, are you going to give us a shock win? I don't know. I doubt it. Like, is this just something to, pop CM Punk and his legacy of loving Bret Hart, Owen Hart? Like, it's just, how did a man that just came back to this sport? Now you want anyone else has a real chance of winning it? Like, I'm meant to be invested in this. Like, we hear a lot of shots taken at King of the Ring, and King of the Ring is rubbish and treated like rubbish these days. Well, I hope everyone's got their eyes open and says the same things about this, because it's
same energy. It's very same energy. And that's the thing as well, because as I said, when they did this last year, Britt Baker and Adam Cole were seen as king and queen. So it's got that whole same King of the Ring-esque thing going on as well. King of the Ring doesn't, the WWE's King of the Ring doesn't necessarily have a stipulation added to the winner, but we've just seen over history that they've whoever's won, especially I guess more so in the early days, that they became contenders for either the Intercontinental Championship or the World Championship. So that so there's still chance for this tournament to mean something, but with what we've seen so far, we've not really got that confidence in it. I was going to ask the question. So obviously we saw Ricky Starks team up with CM Punk and FTR on Collision. Do you think it's imminent that those two meet in the ring in the final of this tournament? And if so, could we possibly get a shock ring? Here's my little gripe with this whole thing. Is it's almost like a year too late for CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, because when CM Punk first turned up, he had this whole little thing. Well, it lasted probably 2 weeks with Team Taz. And I think he faced, who did he face again? Was it Hook?
It was Powerhouse Hobbs.
Was it Powerhouse? Powerhouse Hobbs. My wish was that, he would then eventually have a feud with Ricky Starks. Never happened. CM Punk did his own thing and whatever. And yeah. Do you think there's a possibility of this happening this time around, or does it even matter now? Gerald, what do you think?
What would make sense if we're talking about long-term booking is that he ends up in the finals against Powerhouse Hobbs.
True.
True. And Hobbs gets the win. Like, that's something we'd end up talking about. If Starks ends up against him, it might lead to the eventual heel turn that we've been waiting for with Punk. It's just bad that we don't see any way for Punk to lose in this.
Yeah.
For Ricky Starks, I will say, if there's anybody in this tournament who needs the win just to say they won this tournament, it's Ricky Starks.
Right.
He has honestly not rebounded since getting that world title shot back in December against MJF. Back then he was cooking. He had just come off of that big win with Jericho. He had these fiery promos. Like, it was, okay, the Ricky Starks show. All right, we're ready to see this happen. And then it just kind of fell off. We haven't seen him much on TV, and then he's gotten caught up with this whole Bullet Club Gold thing. So Ricky Starks needs this. And if done right, it'll be kind of the shot in the arm that Ricky Starks needs. If Starks gets past Hobbs and loses in the finals, I don't know where we put him, unless you put him against Scorpio Sky.
Now you're talking. So Ricky Starks has now lost, I think it's 3 times, been pinned 3 times by Jay White. He's lost twice. Really? Yep, he's lost twice to Jay White. He's only lost this year. And obviously he was pinned by Jay White in that 8-man championship, 8-man tag team match on Collision. In the same breath, I asked the question about Athena and Willow Nightingale. Who is it more important to win this match between Hobbs and Starks? Is it for Hobbs because Hobbs has been given the big talk on Collision the last 2 weeks? Obviously, he had that, he had the match, the squash match on Collision, and everything's going on with QT TV, with Johnny TV turning up. Who is it more important? Mex, do you think it's more important for Ricky or for Powerhouse to go into at least to get to the final? And whoever gets to the final, do they even beat CM? It's not going to happen. But yeah, I'll ask the question.
Again, I'm being cheeky. Is it important to either person? Like, for either of them to get to the final and lose to CM Punk, particularly, I don't think that helps anyone, because it's not like they're gonna have a 5-star match with CM Punk, and then it's like, oh well, both men put on a great showing. It's not gonna be that, because Punk isn't that. Like, so I think for CM Punk, like I said, has already said he sees Ricky Starks as a big star and wants to work with him. So I'll be tempted to say Ricky Starks because CM Punk might be more kind of giving towards him and really kind of spotlight the kind of guy that AEW have on their hands here. If Powerhouse Hobbs got to that final and didn't beat CM Punk, my guy, call your agent. You need to move to WWE or somewhere because I can't even fathom that. Like, I have eyes that work, thank God. Like, how can this man not beat this man? Like, and of course, we see in wrestling, David beats Goliath a lot in wrestling, but this David is already on one leg or something, man. He's past it. Like, Goliath would have to slay this guy.
It's David with no sling.
Exactly.
Right. With his
honestly,
bare hands.
Like, it better not be Powerhouse Hobbs. Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks is probably the match you look forward to.
Yeah.
They have a good showing because of their history with each other. Ricky Starks prevails, goes to the final, and then whatever happens between him and CM Punk is what happens.
We've made a strong assumption here. And as you guys were talking, I was thinking the thing that really could get the people talking, because it's clear that the semifinal match on the other side is Punk and Samoa Joe.
Right.
And, for the way that people responded at the first episode of Collision when those two got in the ring, it's a mistake that this match is in the semifinals and not potentially the finals. That's mistake number one.
Right.
But if they want to right the ship, Punk loses to Joe in the semifinals.
Yes.
Then, if you're looking at Joe versus Starks or Hobbs, you got a great situation. Hobbs versus Joe is a great scenario here, and I'd prefer to see a match like that.
There's history between the two as well.
Right. So it may not be the foregone conclusion that we thought, if particularly they want to shock the world. Joe beats Punk. I like the sound of that, actually.
Yeah. And it definitely sounds doable as well.
Yes.
It sounds realistic. It sounds like something that could possibly happen, as opposed to Ricky Starks beating CM Punk in the semifinal. Then it would actually make sense. It would actually make sense. So for me, if Joe wins, I would prefer to see Hobbs versus Joe. But then at the same time, if Joe wins and Ricky Starks meets him in the final, there's still that possibility that Ricky Starks could beat Samoa Joe as well. So I'm really hoping Joe beats CM Punk. Please. Yeah. Someone, please.
That'll be good.
It'll be amazing. Guys, on that note, this has been our show. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the notification bell for when this guy Mex puts out all his reactions and good stuff about WWE, AEW, and anything else in between he feels to talk about. Don't forget also, you can find Mex on WrestleManiac.uk on Instagram, WrestleManiac UK on Twitter, and also you can find him, I always forget to say this, on the Wrestlings with the rest of the guys and Wrestlings YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the most amazing content coming from London. Not in the US, it's coming from London, remember that. Exactly where Money in the Bank decided they need to do their big show. Come on, let's go. Also, you can follow this guy, Gerard Bonner, on everything on Bonafide. Also follow him on The Faction Show, WWT Live, The Nightmare Factory, Battle Slam, and Summon on Wrestling. I got them all right, yes.
Yes.
And anywhere else he decides to pop up. Also, follow both guys on TikTok as well, because they're always throwing up little videos and stuff as well. You can follow me, A Dazzle on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram and BWA Dazzle on Twitter. Guys, this has been our show. I need to get my breath back, so I gotta go. Thank you for watching, guys. See you next time.
See you soon.